127,271 Bitcoin, $15 billion at the price on the day it was seized. The largest forfeiture action in the history of the Department of Justice, and every coin of it sat in a wallet whose private key one man had kept for himself. That's the whole case in one breath. Here's how prosecutors say it actually happened, and here's the part that isn't in that sentence yet. This case also has an American address. Stay with me, we'll get there. On the 14th of October, 2025, prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York filed the complaint that made it official. Routine formatting, standard caption, the kind of filing that moves through that courthouse 100 times a year and never makes the news. Not this one. Not the largest crypto seizure either. The largest, of any kind, ever filed. The coins didn't come from a bank robbery, or an exchange hack, or a cartel's basement. They came from a company with a headquarters, a website, and a philanthropic arm. He thought the wallet was the safe way to do it. Prince Holding Group was not a shell. That's the part people get wrong. It was a conglomerate, real estate, financial services, consumer brands, headquartered in Phnom Penh, with towers it actually built and businesses that actually traded in more than 30 countries. Its chairman was, by any public measure, one of the most successful businessmen in Cambodia. Prosecutors allege something else ran underneath it. Per the indictment, since around 2015, that same chairman was building a parallel operation, compounds across Cambodia run as forced labor scam centers. The people inside were trafficked, recruited with job postings, moved across a border, and then not permitted to leave. Their assigned work was to sit at a terminal all day and build a relationship with a stranger on the other side of the world. That's the business, not the software, not the wallets, the relationship. I should say this plainly, on the record. Everything you're about to hear is what prosecutors allege in an unsealed indictment and a civil forfeiture complaint. The chairman has been charged. He has not been convicted. He is, right now, presumed innocent, even with $15 billion of his alleged proceeds sitting in a U.S. government wallet. Two loose ends are already forming around this case, and neither resolves the way you'd expect. One is where the man who allegedly built it actually ends up. The other is where his alleged victim's money actually goes. Both surface later. Neither is tidy. I've read a lot of typology reports. The detail that still stops me about this one is the org chart. Somebody had to decide the scam compounds needed a human resources function. Per the indictment, somebody did, complete with ledgers tracking which room ran which fraud and how much it made. By 2018, prosecutors allege the operation was generating more than $30 million a day. Not a year, a day. And the legitimate side of the conglomerate, the towers, the philanthropic arm, the consumer brands, wasn't a smokescreen bolted on afterward. Per the indictment, it ran in parallel with the compounds the entire time, funded in part by them. The scheme prosecutors describe has a name investigators use across the industry: pig butchering. The name is ugly, and it's precise. You fatten the animal before slaughter. Conceptually, it runs in 3 moves. First, contact. A wrong number, a friendly correction, a conversation that goes somewhere it shouldn't. Prosecutors allege some of that first contact ran at industrial scale through what the indictment calls phone farms. Banks of phones and millions of numbers. Some of it was dressed up with AI-generated profiles and photos, so the stranger on the other end looked like a real person building a real relationship with you. Second, the platform. The target gets shown an investment site with a live dashboard and a climbing balance. The dashboard is real software. The balance is a number in somebody's database, and it climbs exactly as fast as the story needs it to. Third, the cash out, and this is where it becomes my job instead of the FBI's. Once real money moves in as crypto, prosecutors allege Prince Group associates ran it through what analysts call spraying and funneling. Large amounts split across dozens of wallets, scattered wide, then slowly reconsolidated into fewer and fewer addresses, until the trail reads like ordinary market activity instead of one theft. Here's the part that matters for detection. Every hop in that chain is a decision, and every decision on a public blockchain is a permanent record. The ledger doesn't forget, and it doesn't care whose wallet it is, which is a problem if the wallets are yours. There was a second layer too. Prosecutors allege the network ran its own cryptocurrency mining operation, ostensibly a legitimate business, and used it to further wash the fraud proceeds. Per the indictment, the chairman himself described the appeal to associates in blunt terms. The profit is considerable, he's alleged to have said, because there is no cost. That's not an entrepreneur talking about efficiency. That's someone describing operating capital that was never his to begin with. Per the indictment, the chairman didn't trust exchanges, and honestly, that instinct is defensible. Exchanges get subpoenaed. Exchanges freeze accounts on request. Exchanges employ compliance departments whose entire job is reading the news and asking questions. If you're moving criminal proceeds, an exchange is a room full of people paid to notice you. So, allegedly, the proceeds went somewhere an exchange never touches. Unhosted wallets, no custodian, no third party, no compliance officer standing between the money and its owner. Just him and the keys. And that is how 127,000 Bitcoin ended up sitting in one place, under one man's personal control, with nothing between it and a federal seizure warrant but a private key he carried himself. It wasn't carelessness that put it there, it was caution. He didn't get sloppy, he got careful, in exactly one direction, all the way to the bottom of the ledger. Some of the money, prosecutors allege, went the way seized fortunes usually do. Yachts, private jets, vacation homes, watches. One purchase in the complaint is a Picasso, bought at a New York auction house. Even the spending left a paper trail. Everything does, eventually. Here's the loop I promised you. The trail investigators actually built this case on didn't start in Cambodia. It started in Brooklyn. Prosecutors allege that between 2021 and 2022, a network operating out of Brooklyn, New York, facilitated the transfer of more than $18 million from over 250 victims in New York and across the country back to Prince Group's accounts in Cambodia. That's not incidental, that's jurisdiction. It's the thread that lets an American prosecutor open an American case against a chairman on the other side of the world. From there, it's a joint investigation running on three legs. The FBI's New York Joint Asian Criminal Enterprise Task Force and its Virtual Asset Unit trace the blockchain flows backward, wallet by wallet, from the cash-out points to the aggregation addresses. The DEA's Trident initiative works the money laundering infrastructure, connecting it to the wider criminal economy. And the Justice Department's Office of International Affairs works the paper across borders, because almost none of this evidence sits inside the United States. In October 2025, the indictment was unsealed, the forfeiture complaint was filed, and the Treasury Department designated Prince Group a transnational criminal organization the same day. OFAC named the chairman and a list of associated entities directly. Sanctions from Washington and London landed within hours of each other, freezing the network's access to the parts of the financial system it hadn't already tried to hide from. None of that, by itself, produces an arrest on the other side of the world. That took a separate track. Months of coordination between Cambodian and Chinese authorities, working alongside the DOJ's own Office of International Affairs. Then, in January 2026, Cambodian authorities arrested the chairman and extradited him, not to New York, to China. The coins, though, never moved. They couldn't. That's the whole shape of this case. When the keys belong to one person and investigators get to that person's assets, they get all of it in one motion. Here's where the file actually stands. The Bitcoin, 127,000 of it, is in United States government custody. The civil forfeiture is proceeding through the courts. The sanctions against Prince Group's network are live. The chairman is in China, not in an American courtroom. Extradition went east, not west, and analysts studying the case have said plainly that this may put him beyond the reach of the prosecutors who indicted him. I'm not going to predict how that resolves. I'll tell you what the record says. He was charged in Brooklyn and he is not there. The $15 billion itself isn't a closed question either. Once the case went public, hundreds of alleged victims and their attorneys came forward, and by early this year they were in open conflict with the Justice Department over who actually gets paid. Some claims were rejected for lacking documentation tying a specific loss to a specific seized wallet. Attorneys have pushed for a dedicated victim compensation fund instead of the money defaulting to the General Treasury forfeiture account. As of this recording, that fight is unresolved. Defense attorneys and outside blockchain analysts have raised a separate question, and I'll give it to you straight instead of smoothing it over. On-chain records cited in court filings show some of the seized Bitcoin sitting untouched from roughly 2020 until it started moving across wallets in 2024. A timeline reporters have flagged as harder to reconcile with parts of the indictment than prosecutors have publicly addressed. I'm not qualified to resolve that from this desk, and I'm not going to pretend I am. A Trust Mode channel doesn't get to cite the evidence it likes and skip the evidence that complicates the story. So, the honest ending, not the tidy one. The money was caught. The mechanism was mapped, named, and hit with the largest forfeiture order this department has ever filed. But the man who allegedly built it is sitting in a different country than the one that indicted him. The people whose $18 million opened this entire case are still arguing, in writing, about whether they'll ever see a cent of it back. And parts of the government's own timeline are still being tested in open court. That's not a satisfying paragraph, it's the accurate one. Here's what this case teaches detection, regardless of how the rest of it plays out. The strongest link in any laundering chain is the one the target builds for you. Every intermediary the chairman allegedly cut out, every exchange, every custodian, every compliance officer was also a witness he'd never have to worry about. But it meant that when investigators finally reached the money, there was no one left standing between it and them. Custody is a trade. He took the side of it that scales worst. If this breakdown earned it, hit like and subscribe. There's a new case file every week. Case closed. Follow the money.